on Facebook and Instagram, 258.4 million individuals, such as children, adolescents, and youth, are out of school. That was as of 2018, and this is based on a UNESCO Institute for Statistics report. Hi, y'all. Thanks so much for joining me. In less than 15 minutes, I'll be sharing with you why my company supports the Weiss Scholarship Foundation in improving education for children in Dago, Kenya. Please like and share this video if you get value from it, and if you're listening to it on the replay, you can feel free to type hashtag replay in there. I'm Dr. P. I'm a strategic business coach, been a school psychologist for about 10 years in K-12 schools. I'm a part-time faculty member at the master's level for psychology, and I also am an advisor for CapTech Learning. And education, if you can tell, is very important for me, because when I hear statistics such as 258.4 million children, adolescents, and youth are out of school, that is such a staggering statistic, right? And it makes me go, oh my gosh, what the hell? Because that's a good chunk of our population that we are missing because they're not in school. So low-income countries have a significantly higher number of children out of school than high-income countries. And I strongly believe in education and how powerful it can be for all children. So in this video, I'll be sharing with you why my company supports the Weiss Scholarship Foundation for improving education for children in Dago, Kenya. So I grew up in Barbados, and I received my primary, secondary, and tertiary education in Barbados. In the US, those levels would be what you know as elementary, middle school, high school, and undergraduate degree, or college, depending on who you talk to, use different terms. So for me, education has been important. And if you're not familiar with Barbados, I'll share a little bit about it. Barbados is the gem of the Caribbean, just being biased out there. Barbados is the gem of the Caribbean. It is a tiny little island in the Caribbean. It is only 166 square miles. Like I said, really tiny. I think one time when I looked it up, I found out that Lake Tahoe in California is actually bigger than Barbados, right? And I remember one time I was working with a colleague of mine, and he mentioned he grew up in Pennsylvania. When I asked him the size of the farm he grew up on, the size of his farm was by far bigger than the size of Barbados. And he was like, whoa, oh my gosh. So just to give you a little perspective of how small we are, over 260,000 people are on the island. English is the main language, and I say main language because we do have other languages that are spoken on the island, and we have several different religions, and with the languages, we also have our Bajan dialect that we're very proud of, so that's just a little bit about Barbados. It is considered a third world country, and we have exposure to many things, but not as much as what's available in other larger nations. So, for example, I'm talking about the fact that, yeah, we got internet on the island. We do. We have internet, we have Wi-Fi, we have broadband, but the speeds are not as fast as you will find them here in the US, right? So that's what I mean by we do have access to different things, but slightly different, and not as much as bigger nations. Growing up, through my education and my parents, of course, is how I learned about the history of the Caribbean and the rest of the world, basically. And we also learned, of course, reading, writing, and arithmetic, math. And we learned about social studies, we learned about science, we learned about religion, physical education, biology, chemistry, physics, business, Spanish, French, home economics, and so much more, right? We got exposed to several different things while receiving our education in Barbados, right? So without my educational foundation that I received back home in Barbados, I would not be where I am today, because education was so important to my parents. My mom even shared with me and my sister the fact that we had educational opportunities that she did not have when she was growing up. So as you can imagine, my mom is so proud of how far I have come to this day, and my dad too. Both of them are proud of the accomplishments I've been able to achieve, but I could not have done that without, one, their support, and two, the education that I received growing up in Barbados. It has taken me to where I am today, and it's going to continue to take me and propel me to who knows how far I'm going to be going, right? So part of what I learned when I was growing up in Barbados was that educational opportunities were not the same all over the world. I didn't know that. When you're young, you learn about different places, but you didn't realize how different life was, in different places. And education is one of those differences. And not every child in every country has access to the same educational opportunities. And that's something I learned when I was growing up, right? And especially when it comes to educational opportunities for girls, at the primary level. So for me, I found that to be quite interesting because it's education. And I thought everybody should have education. And when it comes to the access to education, there's several social issues that impact opportunities, especially for girls and also for boys in rural communities. So if you remember that statistic I mentioned at the beginning of all of this, 258.4 million children, adolescents, and youth are out of school. This was based on a report that UNESCO did back in 2019 using results and statistics up until 2018, right? They also shared that 68.2 million children, adolescents, and youth who do not attend school are from low-income countries. And this is compared to the 5.7 million children who do not attend school in high-income countries. Come on, look at that. That's a huge difference. 68.2 million versus 5.7 million. Huge difference in the number of children who are not attending school in low-income countries. So for me, when I first learned about the Weiss Scholarship Foundation, I became very interested in wanting to learn more about what they do. I remember when I met the founder and director, Brett Weiss. He and I had lengthy conversations. Started off first, we met through LinkedIn, and it started off on LinkedIn, and we were able to have some virtual face-to-face conversations about the needs of the children in Kenya, and specifically in Dago, Kenya, right? And how his foundation is helping to support education for the children in Dago, Kenya, right? We talked about how there's so many challenges that are associated with education. Poverty is one of those major challenges that many students face in Kenya, especially in Dago, Kenya, right? Within the community, though, there are also some other challenges that are associated with access to electricity, to internet, to water, and other challenges, right? So Brett shared with me that their foundation really had to choose what they were going to be focusing on. Because yes, there are several needs, but they needed to focus on something specific. So they chose education. And the reason why they chose education has a lot to do with Brett's parents, right? And their belief in education. I actually had the opportunity to speak to 2 students who have received scholarships from the Weiss Scholarship Foundation, and I've had the opportunity to talk to staff as well. And it was great to hear from them how much this has changed their lives in terms of the students and in terms of the individuals who work with Weiss Scholarship Foundation in Dago, Kenya, just to hear from them the differences that they have seen in the educational outcomes for the children who have received the scholarships. So that was really exciting, very motivational to hear that information firsthand, right? And this was because of some infrastructure and equipment that made it possible for me to be even able to connect via Zoom with the individuals in Dago, Kenya. It was tons of fun to learn directly from them. Brett had taken a trip to Dago, Kenya, I think back in 2009 or something, and he fell in love with the people there. So that's the reason why Dago, Kenya is where his foundation focuses, right? That's where they focus on. So let me share a little bit more about Weiss Scholarship Foundation, right? Brett shared with me that the foundation is in honor of his parents, Bernard and Elsie. And they originated from the city of Chicago, and they grew up during the Great Depression. So if you know a little history about the Great Depression, you know how much of a struggle that time was for several families all over, right? It was very much so a struggle. So they had a lot of hardships, but Brett said that they didn't let those hardships stop them from making sure that he and his 2 brothers had the education that they needed so that they can go on in life to achieve great things, right? So thanks for joining on Facebook. I am talking about the Weiss Scholarship Foundation, which is a foundation that my company, Priscilla Kuster Consulting Solutions, supports. And it's because of the vision and mission of the Weiss Scholarship Foundation. And joining on Facebook, you can say hi and where you're joining from in the comments. So talking about the Weiss Scholarship Foundation, the mission is to empower the children of Kenya by ensuring that they have access to a great education, right? And Brett also shared that their vision is to help children in Kenya to develop a positive sense of self, and enrich their lives, right? That is the vision and the mission of the Weiss Scholarship Foundation. So the work of the foundation, this is the part that really got me truly interested in supporting this foundation. The work of the foundation is aligned to 5 of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And those 5 are Goal 1, no poverty; Goal 2, zero hunger; Goal 4, quality education; Goal 5 is gender equality; and Goal 10 is reduced inequalities. So for me, when I read that list of the goals that they align to through their work that they're doing in their foundation, that really resonated with me, and I was like, oh my gosh, those are things that I would love to support to help children get access to education. So it really is those alignment with those 5 goals that really propelled my desire to support the Weiss Scholarship Foundation. So here's the thing though, when you work with my company, if you're a business owner as in a solo entrepreneur, or you are a small business owner and it's you and your team and we're working together and you're receiving coaching services, consulting services, or training services, 10% of your payment for your services goes to supporting the Weiss Scholarship Foundation. That's how much we believe in supporting education. We are making sure that with every client we have, we are also supporting the Weiss Scholarship Foundation. So when you're working with me and my company, it's not that just that you're getting consulting, it's not just that you're getting coaching, it's not just that you're getting the training that you're looking for, but you're also helping to provide education to children in Dago, Kenya, to help improve their outcomes. That is the bonus of working with me and my company. So when a student receives a scholarship from the Weiss Scholarship Foundation, right, it's not a matter of you just mailing in some money and them sending it off to Never Never Land, right? That's not what this is about. This is about the fact that Brett and his team tracks the progress that the student is making. So the student does receive the scholarship, but it doesn't end there at them receiving the scholarship, because Brett is truly interested and his team is truly interested in the outcomes that the student has. So Brett visits about 3 times a year, and outside of those visits, and even during his visit, he and his team review report cards. They spend time with parents and guardians. They spend time with administrators and with teachers, and really get an update of what is happening with the student, right? And between visits, Brett and his team, they meet frequently to talk about how the recipients of the scholarship are doing. That's what they do. It's because, again, it's not a matter of just writing a check and just turning around. They're truly invested in the outcomes of the students. So they're wanting to make sure that the student is actually getting the education that they're supposed to be getting as a result of the scholarship that they have received, really. So between their visits, remember I said they're in frequent communication. They communicate via email, they communicate via WhatsApp chat and phone call, and they also communicate via Zoom. So they're in frequent communication with each other about how the student is doing, so that they can make sure the student is truly making the progress that they're supposed to be making as a result of receiving the scholarship from the Weiss Scholarship Foundation. So visit the Weiss Scholarship Foundation's website to learn more about the foundation and to learn more about the background of the members of the Dago Kenya team. Because like I said, Brett does have some team members who are there and working with the students and their families to help make sure that they're getting the access that they need for education. So while you're on that website, by the way, get inspired and give education today. You know, that is the whole purpose of the foundation, and we would really appreciate it if you would give some education today and support a child or two or three, how much ever you want to support, that lives in Dago, Kenya, to ensure that they're getting that education to improve their outcome. I'm Dr. Priscilla Kuser with Priscilla Kuser Consulting Solutions. Thank y'all so much for joining me. And remember, the Weiss Scholarship Foundation is there to help improve educational outcomes for children in Dago, Kenya. And solutions plus actions equals results, y'all. Thanks so much for joining.